Okay, team, so one of the very first videos I did on my channel was how Bruce Banner would have just died, and we talked about gamma radiation. I've almost talked about all the different types of radiation. There's a playlist on the channel, but I want to round this out by talking about neutron radiation and why Indiana Jones would have just died. I'm super late to the game with why his refrigerator plan was ridiculous, but we're gonna talk about it because I've got feelings. So why would Indiana Jones have just died? Why is climbing into a lead-lined refrigerator such a bad idea following a nuclear weapon going off? Well, it's because lead is only good at shielding gamma radiation. So if all we had to care about was gamma radiation, Indiana Jones has a halfway decent idea. You need about 4 inches of lead to drop the amount of radiation you're exposed to by a factor of 10. So I will just generously say that if it was just gamma radiation that comes out of a nuclear bomb, then this video is going to get flagged for me saying nuclear bomb, isn't it? I swear this is about safety in fiction and for learning. Okay. Fiction, learning, Indiana Jones, gamma radiation. Cool. So let's say he would have been protected. And then he would have neither turned into the Hulk nor died instantly, as we learned about Bruce Banner. But what about neutron radiation? Let's remind ourselves what neutrons are, okay? So, in your maybe high school chemistry, college chemistry, some kind of science class you've taken at some point in your life, you learned that atoms have neutrons. Neutrons are going to be blue. Neutrons and protons are going to be red because they're positively charged. Oh no, that's silly. Neutrons, protons should be green because they're positively charged. There we go. There's my proton. And then we'll have an electron. It'll be red since it's negatively charged. That's an E. And it orbits, right? We know this. Okay, so to talk about neutron radiation, as we've learned before when we've talked about radiation in general, we know that radiation is just particles getting chucked at you, and particles have energy, and energy can do stuff. And in 30 seconds or less, that's what radiation is. Particles with energy doing stuff. So neutrons, why are we frightened about neutrons? Because of all the different types of radiation we've talked about, the one that actually causes me a little bit of trepidation is neutron radiation. And it's probably the one you've never heard about. Okay, neutrons. So, neutrons have no charge, right? So, that means that they're not going to interact with material around them via the electromagnetic force. When we talked about beta radiation or alpha radiation, we talked about these big, heavy, charged particles passing by atoms and either pushing or pulling on the orbiting electrons, right? Based off if it was an attractive force or a repulsive force. Remember that you can think of that like the north and south pole of a magnet, right? So what that means is that alpha radiation and beta radiation, right, interacts with material at a distance. That's actually what makes it much, much, much easier to shield for, because it's going to interact with everything it gets close to. It doesn't actually have to smack into something. Now, a photon, gamma radiation, doesn't have charge, right? But it also doesn't have mass. So a photon just kind of runs around until it interacts with something and gives its energy away until it's no longer of high enough energy to like cause damage to humans is the thing that we're talking about right now, right? So neutrons are interesting because they have mass, but they don't have charge. So the only way a neutron can give its energy to something is if it actually hits it. So we need this neutron to say, come in here, smack off that proton, and bounce away at a slower speed, right? So if its speed is 5 units of your choice, and after it smacks this proton, now it's like 4 unit of your choice, right? That's the only way that it loses energy. So you can think of a neutron and neutron radiation as, honestly, think of it as a wrecking ball that just comes in and what it wants to do, it wants to smash up atoms. And it's really difficult to shield for because neutrons are fairly small compared to most atoms. So actually what I drew here is deuterium, which is a less common form of hydrogen that exists in nature. But let's make it helium, right? Let's add another proton, and we'll add another neutron, right? And so the bigger the atom it hits, think about how big carbon in our bodies, or oxygen, which has like 16 things in the nucleus, is compared to 1 neutron. So you can think of this as when this neutron is interacting with, say, like oxygen, it just sort of, it's like a ping pong ball hitting a bowling ball. It just bounces off and it doesn't do much to the bowling ball. But what it's really good at interacting with and why it's dangerous to humans is water. It's really good at interacting with water. Turns out we are 70% water. So the neutron radiation can come bombard the human body and bounce off those water molecules that are all in us. And maybe it'll strip off a proton, maybe it'll strip, maybe now you have a free proton running around. Again, we've talked about how biological damage occurs when you have chemistry happening where and when it's not supposed to. And for those with chemistry backgrounds, potentially in my audience, I'm sorry that was not very specific, but conceptually, that's what's happening. Right? Chemistry happening where it's not supposed to in our human body is a great way to damage a human, like a lot. So neutron radiation is pretty difficult to shield for. The best shield for it is water, right? So let's bring this back to Indiana Jones, right? Indiana Jones, there's a nuclear reaction, right? There's a nuclear bomb. Neutron radiation is kind of the first wave of radiation that comes out of a nuclear explosion. And lead doesn't stop it at all. So if Indiana Jones wanted to survive, right, the refrigerator plan, not the worst, but he needed to get in a refrigerator, a lead-lined refrigerator, at the bottom of a pool. He needed to be under a good amount of water that's going to attenuate or dispel or cause the neutrons to lose energy. And that's how he could have potentially survived. And I know it's like the 4th movie of which we do not talk about. But there you go. That is, in a nutshell, why Indiana Jones would have just died. I hope you guys like this video. what I want to talk about next. I'm kind of not quite done talking about radiation because I want to talk more in depth about shielding mechanisms, and I want to talk about how do you know how much radiation you've been exposed to and what levels are dangerous, and I kid you not, how to measure that in equivalent number of bananas eaten. So please look forward to that. And you guys are great. I hope you guys are well, and I will talk to you super soon. Have a great day.